The ultimate Xbox controller comparison funded by PDP. Not really. I was actually loaned a whole bunch of controllers by a friend who has also provided some footage, but we'll talk more about that later. The video isn't actually sponsored, I guess he just likes PDP. Anyway, the real plan of this video is to compare a whole slew of Xbox controllers to the best of my abilities using what methods I could find that didn't require me to take apart the controllers. I'm not about to scuff a $230 Scuf. Which brings us to the lineup. We've got a whole variety of prices and styles. We've got a few controllers made by PDP and 3 different styles of controllers made by Xbox, and an incredibly expensive Scuf controller, so that gives us controllers from all the way down at like $35 all the way up to $230, and that should be a pretty good sample size. Now, the 2 options that I found on how to test these controllers are a C++ script that someone made and put on GitHub. I'll link to the page below, and the good old-fashioned screen latency test, which may or may not work out great as my phone only records at 30 FPS, but it should be enough when both tests are put together to give us a pretty good idea of the differences in these controllers' latencies and inputs. I will not be comparing the different styles of triggers or anything like that in this video, just a baseline trying to see what's really the fastest and what kind of takeaways we get from that. This is the README packet included in the C++ script, and it definitely explains what's going on better than I could. Simple tool to check the latency and update rate of an Xbox 360 controller or virtual X input device, DualShock 3 or 4. It's got some changelog stuff. It says that the reason why is they wanted to measure the latency of their DualShock 3 or 4 controllers via USB and Bluetooth, but haven't found a tool which let them do it. Although you can find videos and articles about the update rates, they wanted to check for themselves, which is awesome, and they put it on GitHub, and you can download it, and it's cool. Polling rate being the amount of times the device updates its input every second, so the higher number, the better. And for this test, even though it pulls 1,000 samples, I still ran the test 10 times for each controller so that we can take an overall average. I also need to point out a huge disclaimer in that the wireless controllers were tested over Bluetooth because the C++ X input test is on the PC and I don't have one of those little Xbox wireless dongles. The issue being that the Xbox controllers don't default to Bluetooth while communicating with the Xbox. According to Microsoft, it has a proprietary communication standard called Xbox Wireless. So because it's claimed to not be exactly the same as Bluetooth, it is possible that some of the tests on the PC won't represent exactly how the controllers would perform on a console, which is why I also tested button press to screen display latency, which is a very crude test that requires you to record button presses while recording at an angle on a camera in which you can see both the screen and the controller input at the same time. Then slow it down and count out the frames. So to aggregate that into actual information, I'll just count it all out and provide an average for each controller. Then what I plan to do is take the averages from both tests and just see how each controller stacks up. I won't make you suffer through any footage of me tallying averages. Math, ugh, boring. But we will watch a clip of the input test for each controller, just so that you can see that I did indeed run this test for each controller. So with all that done, it's time to announce the winner on the PC. And it actually has some interesting results. The obvious winners are the wired controllers. They're just faster than Bluetooth. But what's surprising is that the controller in first place overall is actually the $35 PDP rematch, with an input delay of only 3 milliseconds and the highest average polling rate. This $35 little controller is a really darn good deal for the price. The second place runner-up is the Victrix Gambit tournament controller, and it has an average input delay of 3 milliseconds as well, and a slightly lower polling rate. This could come down to the length or materials used in the cables. And on that note, the PDP Afterglow actually fell into 6th place, using micro USB. So if you're looking for a wired controller, make sure that it's USB-C. So what gets third place in this test on the PC? Well, kind of blown away by this result. Third place goes to the stock Xbox Series X controller with a latency of 7.8 milliseconds and an average polling rate of 122.4. I'm quite surprised that the stock standard Xbox Series controller rates in third place. The rest of the list is as follows, with the black heavily used Elite Series 2 controller pulling up the tail end. I'm rather disappointed in the Scuf for more than just one reason, but we'll save that for the controller review video. Now to see how each controller fares on the input latency test, or the screen input latency test, or at least the best I'm able to do with it. Again, not going to make you watch me count out all the frames here, so while I'll show some footage from the controllers, I'll explain what my test is here. I want to slow each video down to half speed, 50 of 100, and ripple the timeline in DaVinci Resolve, making it as accurate as I possibly can. I'll count out the frames for 5 button presses for each controller, pull the average, and then declare a winner for this category. If it matches with the winners from the X input test, then we have the overall grand champion for controller speeds. So, with all that, here are the results. And I really wasn't sure this test was going to be conclusive because they do say that you need to record at 60 frames per second, but I got results anyway. And after tallying the averages of all controllers, found that they actually mirror the results from the PC test fairly well. The top two and most consistent controllers are the PDP Rematch and the Victrix Gambit, tied for first place, both averaging 6 frames. And basically always hitting 6 frames, followed up with the Xbox Series X stock controller in third place. Then in fourth place, almost all the controllers tied with an average of 7.2 frames, except the Elite Series 2, which again drags in last place with an average of 9.6 frames. So all in all, my conclusions are that if you want a fast, consistent input, you want to use a good USB-C connected controller. And from what I have seen, it doesn't matter if you spend $35 or $100, that's how you'll see your best advantages. And if you're good with it, like I am, the stock controller that comes with the Xbox serves as a pretty good controller, beating out the Elite Series 2 as far as latency goes. Now if you want customization, you'll want what you want, and none of these controllers are going to make you better at whatever you want them for. They may provide some advantages, but if you're an old fart like I am, then it'll come with a learning curve. Getting used to the sensitivities and new layouts, button mapping, muscle memory plays a big factor. The surprising takeaway from all these tests, so the blowout in my opinion, is just how good the PDP Rematch seems to be for how cheap it is. I mean, it's $35. But these controllers are also a sample size of 1 each, except for the Elite Series controllers. But I did most of the tests with the full Elite Series black controller and not the white one. So yeah, the PDP Rematch is a good controller for the price, even has remappable paddles and an app that allows you to update it and do other things with the customize your button layout and everything and change sensitivity on the triggers. But anyway, I intend to milk these controllers as much as I can, so stay tuned for individual reviews to follow. About that friend, I want to thank SwiftLogic for providing these controllers and to say thanks again for gifting me a few of them. He's been a long time patron to my Valhalla's Demise channels, and if you like watching game reviews, gameplay, or are interested in art stuff, remember to check those channels out. They're always linked in the description below. I think that pretty well covers it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll do the best that I can to answer them. And yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. This has been Valhalla's Demise. Remember to be safe and be good, and I hope to catch you in the next TECHNOBABBLE.